Hello Internet, I'm Darren of the Gaming Pilgrimage, and today marks the beginning of my Tales of Retrospective, meaning that I will review each game of the Tales series that had a Western release. I will be conducting these reviews by order of release, meaning that today's review is about the first Tales game to get a release here in North America, Tales of Destiny for the PlayStation 1. Tales of Destiny was originally released in the Western world in 1998 by Namco, before the Bandai. Get it? Namco Bandai. Anyways, released for the good old PS1, and boy, kinda shows its age, but not necessarily in a bad way. But before we dig in too deep, let's go over the basic plot. The game centers around our hero, Stan Alron, and fellow Swordian masters. What's a Swordian, you ask? Aside from sounding like some sort of badass 80s cartoon, Swordians in actuality are magical talking swords. Stan, while stowing away on a dragon ship, gets caught and probably gets the ever-loving crap kicked out of him. Then, when monsters attack, he comes across the fire Swordian, Dalmos, and from here he begins an adventure that spans the entire globe, where he'll meet several characters and their Swordians as they join forces to, you guessed it, save the world from evil. This is where I'll stop my plot synopsis, as I do wish to avoid spoilers despite the fact that this game's plot is something you've already experienced. If not, you're at least familiar with something similar to it. But what does set this game's narrative apart from other RPGs of the era are the characters. Stan meets a colorful cast of both playable and non-playable characters, and often the dialogue and conversations between them are quite humorous, despite the fact that the translation is a bit dry. But the game did come out when such translations were the norm, so it shouldn't detract too much from anyone's overall enjoyment of the game or its narrative. Just be aware that the overall plot comes off as a bit generic but enjoyable, which kinda applies to the whole game. Alright, so enough about the story. Is the gameplay any good? Does it still hold up? Yes and no. Remember I said this game shows its age? Well, that mainly applies to both the graphics and the gameplay. The combat ditched the norm of many PS1 RPGs and uses a real-time battle system, instead of a turn-based one, which for the most part works quite well. But with that said, it hasn't aged as well as I remembered it to be. The game uses the linear motion battle system, meaning that all the combat is handled in 2D as done in real time. Future titles refine this system, but that's for later. Attacks are conducted by button pressing in a manner that is similar to that of a fighting game. You have your regular sword thrusts and slashes, as well as special techniques called, specials and, spells. A tad generic and uninspired, I know. And something that really set the Tales games apart is its cooperative play. That's right, you and your friends can play together. Well, you gotta have a channeling ring, which is a specific ring in the game, you gotta equip to the party members, then your friends can play. But your friends cannot control the overall world map and navigation. That's left to player one. Unfortunately, pretty much like every other old school RPG, the game is plagued with random encounters. Luckily, the encounter rate isn't too bad, but future Tales games do away with the random encounters. The game took me around 30 hours to complete, and I didn't get around to finish all the side quests, so there's plenty of game to enjoy here. So aside from the battle system, much of the game is strikingly similar to most other 32-bit RPGs, except for the graphics. The game looks like an extremely polished SNES game, but that isn't really a bad or a good thing. I think the game looks pretty solid, and the battle graphics and animations have aged pretty well. I feel that the age aesthetic adds to the charm and the appeal of this game. It feels old school, and that rocks. The music, on the other hand, has aged pretty well, and it still sounds great, providing moody, atmospheric tunes and catchy battle themes. I gotta tip my hat to Motoi Sakuraba and Shinji Tatsuma, sorry for butchering that, for composing an excellent score that has aged well as wine. Well, pretty much as well as wine. Old school is the perfect term I can use to describe this game. I believe that anyone craving an adventure that harkens back to the good old days of role-playing games, but before Square Enix fucked up the genre with Final Fantasy XIII, anyone before then can enjoy the familiar but enjoyable experience that Tales of Destiny can provide. Also, I should mention that in 2008, Namco Bandai, no longer Namco, released a Director's Cut edition of Tales of Destiny for the PlayStation 2. This edition provides a fully voiced game, remastered visuals and sound, as well as new content. Plus, it's pretty cheap online. But sadly, it's Japanese only. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the Western disc of this game, which is now a bastard to track down. Prices on eBay range from 60 plus, 50 if you're lucky for the disc only in an acceptable condition. Needless to say, if you see this for cheap, grab it. Tales of Destiny is one of those games I would really appreciate and like to see on the PlayStation Network. I mean, come on, I need something that isn't Persona or Final Fantasy related to play on the Vita. Well guys, that about wraps up my review of Tales of Destiny. It's an RPG that I can confidently recommend to any old school or hardcore RPG fan, but for those expecting to be similar to the later games of the series, they're going to probably be disappointed. Well, I hope you enjoyed the review. Stay tuned for next time as I look into the not sequel to this game, Tales of Destiny 2. Until then, this is Darren the Gaming Pilgrimage signing off, saying, enjoy what's old school. If anyone has a copy of this game they want to sell it, hey, you should message me. Ciao!
奇跡だったか